Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the Earth Alliance vessel Defiant, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the massive view screen. The stars looked the same as they always had, but everything else had changed. The galaxy was no longer safe. "Status report," he said, his voice calm despite the tension that filled the bridge. Lieutenant Tom Davis looked up from his console, his face pale. "The Arcturus Empire has just activated their shield network, sir. Their entire system is now cut off from the rest of the galaxy." Walker nodded grimly. That made three major powers who had sealed themselves away in the past week. First the Blue Star Republic, then the Highland Dominion, and now Arcturus. The stellar collective was falling apart piece by piece. "Any response to our messages?" Walker asked. "No, sir," Communications Officer Lisa Park replied. "They've gone completely silent. Same as the others." Walker turned to his second-in-command, Commander Ben Ross. "Opinions?" Ross shook his head. "They're scared. All of them. And I can't blame them." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what, or rather who, the aliens were afraid of: the void. They had appeared without warning just 2 weeks ago, emerging from unknown space beyond the galactic rim. Black ships that moved like living things, consuming everything in their path. 3 outer colony worlds had already fallen. "Captain," Davis called out suddenly, "I'm detecting a massive energy surge from the Arcturus barrier." Walker turned sharply. On screen. The view screen shifted to show the Arcturus system. A shimmering wall of energy was forming around the entire system, spanning billions of kilometers. It looked like a soap bubble encasing dozens of worlds and thousands of ships. Then, with a flash that made the bridge crew shield their eyes, the barrier solidified. "My God," Ross whispered. "They've trapped thousands of refugee ships outside their shield." Walker zoomed the view in, showing countless civilian vessels drifting helplessly near the now impenetrable barrier. The ships had fled from worlds in the path of the void, seeking protection from the mighty Arcturus Empire. And they had been abandoned. Among those ships were at least 30 Earth vessels. Walker's fist tightened. "Open a channel to Earth Command," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." The weathered face of Admiral Mary Grant appeared on the screen. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, which was probably true. "Captain Walker," she said, "I take it you've witnessed what's happening at Arcturus." "Yes, Admiral. They've activated their ancient defense system and stranded thousands of refugees, including our people." Grant nodded wearily. "The same thing is happening throughout the collective. Every major power is retreating behind their borders." "What about us? Does Earth have similar technology?" The Admiral's silence was answer enough. Humanity, relatively new to the galactic scene, had never developed the kind of planetary shields that the ancient empires possessed. "The Council is meeting now," Grant said finally. "Some want to surrender to the void. Others think we should fight." Her expression hardened. "I want you to bring the Defiant home, Captain. We need every ship we have." Walker hesitated. "Admiral, with respect, there are Earth citizens stranded out there. The Defiant could evacuate some of them." "Your orders are to return to Earth immediately, Captain." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Walker stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he turned to his crew. "Set course for the refugee fleet," he said quietly. Ross stepped closer. "Sir, our orders." "I know what our orders are, Commander." Walker met his gaze steadily. "But I also know what's right. We don't leave our people behind." The commander hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." The Defiant changed course, moving swiftly toward the mass of stranded ships. As they approached, Walker could see the desperation in the haphazard way the vessels clustered together. "Incoming transmission from one of the Earth ships," Park announced. "Put it through." The screen showed a middle-aged man with a dirt-smudged face. Behind him, Walker could see dozens of people crowded into what looked like a cargo hold. "This is Captain Travis of the merchant vessel North Star. Thank God you're here." The Arcturians closed their borders without warning. We have over 300 refugees on board, mostly families from the outer colonies. Life support is failing. And a distant boom echoed through the transmission, and the ship shook. What was that? Walker demanded. Travis's face went pale. They're here. The void found us. The transmission cut to show a view outside the ship. 3 massive black vessels were approaching the refugee fleet, their surfaces rippling like oil on water. Red alert, Walker ordered. Battle stations. The Defiant's crew rushed to their positions as the ship's alarms blared. We're outgunned, sir, Ross warned. The Defiant wasn't built to face whatever those things are. Walker knew he was right. The Defiant was a diplomatic vessel with moderate defenses, not a warship, but he also knew they couldn't abandon those people. Target the lead void ship, he commanded. Fire everything we've got. The Defiant surged forward, weapon systems coming online. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out, striking the nearest void vessel. For a moment, the black surface rippled more violently. Then it simply absorbed the attack. No effect, sir, Davis reported, voice tight with tension. Keep firing. Get between them and the refugee ships. The Defiant moved into position, continuing to fire as it placed itself as a shield between the void and their prey. The black ships paused, seeming almost confused by this act of defiance. Walker opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain James Walker of Earth Alliance. All vessels capable of faster-than-light travel, prepare to jump on my mark. Those without FTL, dock with ships that have it. We're getting everyone out of here. A chorus of desperate acknowledgments came through. Walker watched as the refugee ships began to organize, the stronger helping the weaker. The void vessels started moving again, accelerating toward them. Sir, they're launching something, Davis reported. Looks like boarding craft. Dozens of smaller black objects were now streaming from the void ships. Walker made his decision. Commander Ross, take a security team and get aboard the North Star. Help them prepare for jump. I'll keep the Defiant between the void and the refugee fleet as long as possible. Ross protested. Captain. That's an order, Commander. Those people need help, and Earth needs to know what we're facing. Ross straightened and saluted. It's been an honor, sir. As Ross left the bridge, Walker turned back to the view screen. The void ships were almost upon them. On other screens, he could see the desperate scramble as refugee ships docked with each other, preparing to flee. Walker set his jaw. The ancient empires might hide behind their walls, but humanity would not abandon its own. If this was to be his final stand, he would make it count. All weapons, continuous fire, he ordered. Let's show these things that humans don't go down without a fight. As the Defiant opened fire once more, Walker thought of Earth, beautiful and vulnerable. Whatever happened here today, humanity would need to prepare, because unlike the ancient empires of the Stellar Collective, humans had nowhere to hide. The fight had only just begun. Every empire closed their doors, but humans chose to fight for them. Part 2. First Contact. The Defiant shuddered as another energy blast struck its shields. Captain Walker gripped his command chair, watching as the status displays flashed warning signals across the bridge. Shields at 30%. Davis called out, his fingers dancing across the controls. Walker nodded grimly. Status of the refugee fleet. Lisa Park looked up from her station. 80% have managed to link up with FTL-capable vessels. They need 3 more minutes to complete evacuation protocols. 3 minutes. Walker wasn't sure they had that long. The void ships had surrounded the Defiant but were oddly hesitant to destroy it outright. They seemed almost curious. Sir, Park said suddenly, I'm getting a signal from the North Star. Commander Ross is requesting emergency transport. They found something. Walker's eyebrows shot up. Put him through. Ross's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of urgency and amazement. Captain, you need to see this. We've got a survivor from Horizon Colony, a scientist. She says she knows what the void really is. Transport them directly to the bridge, Walker ordered without hesitation. Moments later, the bridge's transport pad hummed to life. 3 figures materialized: Commander Ross, a security officer, and a disheveled woman clutching the data tablet to her chest. Her lab coat was torn and stained, but her eyes were clear and determined. "Captain Walker," Ross introduced. "This is Dr. Emma Reed, xenobiologist from Horizon Research Station." Walker stepped toward her. "Doctor, I understand you have information about the void." Dr. Reed nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she activated her tablet. "Captain, they're not what we think they are. The void ships, they're being controlled." "Controlled? By what?" "By these." She held up the tablet, showing microscopic images of what looked like black, spindly parasites. "We call them shadows. They attach to the nervous system of a host and take complete control." Walker studied the images with growing dread. "And the void ships are living beings," Dr. Reed explained, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "Or they were. The shadows have taken over entire species, turning them into weapons. The ships aren't built. They're grown and enslaved." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "How do you know this?" Walker asked finally. "Because one of them crashed on Horizon," Reed answered. "I managed to isolate and study a shadow parasite before the main attack. And," she hesitated, "I found a way to temporarily disrupt their control." A massive blast rocked the ship, throwing several crew members to the floor. "Shields at 15%. Davis shouted. "They're increasing power." Walker made a quick decision. "Dr. Reed, can your disruption method be weaponized?" "Theoretically, yes, but..." "That's good enough for now." Walker turned to his tactical officer. "Target their central ship with everything we've got left." The Defiant's remaining weapon systems came online, concentrating fire on the largest void vessel. The black surface rippled violently under the assault. "No effect on their defenses, sir," Davis reported. Walker hadn't expected any. "I wasn't trying to destroy it." "Doctor, look at this." He pointed to the view screen. The void ships had stopped attacking. They were drifting, almost as if confused. "They're curious about us," Walker said quietly. "Every other species they've encountered has either fled or been destroyed. But we stood our ground. We're an anomaly." Dr. Reed's eyes widened with understanding. "The shadows control through fear. They may not know how to process defiance." "Sir," Park interrupted, "the refugee fleet is ready to jump." Walker nodded. "Tell them to go. We'll follow once they're clear." As the refugee ships began to disappear into hyperspace one by one, Walker turned back to Dr. Reed. "We need to capture one of those smaller craft. Can you work with our science team to adapt your disruption method?" Before she could answer, a new alarm blared. "Captain," Davis shouted, "one of the void ships is launching something toward us. It's not a weapon. I think it's a communication probe." Walker stared in disbelief. "Bring it aboard. Maximum containment protocols." 20 minutes later, Walker stood in the Defiant's secure lab, watching as Dr. Reed and the science team carefully examined the black, pulsing object that had been transported aboard. "It's organic," Dr. Reed confirmed, scanning the object. "And it contains..." "Wait." She adjusted her scanner. "Captain, there's a being inside this pod. Life signs are weak but present. Is it safe to open?" Walker asked. Reed hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. The shadow parasite signature is minimal." With careful precision, the science team opened the strange pod. Inside lay a humanoid figure with pale blue skin, looking almost like a sleeping child. Its body was marred by black veins that pulsed beneath the surface. "The shadow infection is in early stages," Reed whispered, scanning the alien. This one was only recently captured. Suddenly, the alien's eyes opened, startlingly clear and bright against its blue skin. It looked directly at Walker, then at Reed, then back to Walker. Its mouth opened, revealing delicate pointed teeth. "Help," it said in a raspy voice. "Please, help us." Walker knelt beside the containment field. "Who are you?" We're the Lumina," the alien replied, each word clearly painful. "Peaceful. Explorers. Until they came." Its hand rose to its neck, where the black veins were most prominent. "Shadows. Take over. Make us hurt others." Dr. Reed moved closer. "The entire Void Fleet?" "Yes. Many species. All enslaved." The Lumina's eyes filled with tears. "Cannot control. Watch only. As our bodies kill." Walker exchanged a glance with Reed. "You sent yourself to us. Why?" "You fight," the Lumina whispered. "Others hide. You stand. First time. Hope." The alien's body suddenly convulsed, the black veins pulsing more intensely. Its face contorted in pain. "It's losing control," Reed said urgently. "The shadow is reasserting dominance." "Is there anything you can do?" Walker asked. Reed hesitated only briefly before grabbing a hypospray. "I can try my disruption compound, but it's untested on living subjects." "Do it," Walker ordered. Reed administered the compound through the containment field. The Lumina's body arched in pain, then went still. For a terrifying moment, Walker thought they'd killed it. Then the black veins began to recede from its face and neck, fading like ink washing away. The alien's eyes opened again, clearer than before. "Thank you," it whispered. "It worked," Reed said, amazement in her voice. "The compound is suppressing the shadow's control." Walker studied the Lumina with newfound determination. "Dr. Reed, I think we just found our weapon." On the main view screen, they could see the void ships had moved closer, surrounding the Defiant completely. Not attacking. Waiting. "They sent us an envoy," Walker realized. "They're reaching out for help." Reed nodded. "This changes everything. We're not fighting an invading force. We're fighting a parasite that's enslaved countless species." Walker stood tall, decision made. "Set course for Earth. Maximum speed." He looked at the Lumina, then at Dr. Reed. "We're going to need every resource we can get. The Stellar Collective may have closed their doors, but humanity just found a new mission." As the Defiant prepared to jump to hyperspace, Walker stared at the massive void ships on the view screen. For the first time since the crisis began, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. Because humans didn't just fight for themselves. They fought for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed right now. The Grand Chamber of the Earth Alliance Council fell silent as Captain Walker finished speaking. 50 council members sat in a semicircle, their faces showing a mixture of disbelief, fear, and cautious hope. Behind Walker stood Dr. Reed and the Lumina visitor, who had told them his name was Nix. Admiral Grant was the first to speak. "Let me make sure I understand correctly, Captain. You're saying the Void isn't an invading army, but victims of a parasitic organism?" "Yes, Admiral," Walker confirmed. "The shadows have enslaved multiple species, including the Lumina. The ships themselves are living beings under parasitic control." Counselor Jack Peterson, a barrel-chested man representing the Mars colonies, stood up. "This is absurd. We're supposed to believe this creature. For all we know, this is a trick to lower our defenses." Nick stepped forward, his blue skin almost luminescent under the chamber lights. The black veins were now barely visible around his neck, thanks to daily treatments with Dr. Reed's compound. "I understand your fear," Nick said, his voice stronger than when they'd first found him. "My people felt the same when the shadows first came. We thought them a natural disaster, then enemies, then conquerors. Only too late did we understand they were parasites, using our bodies as vessels." Dr. Reed activated a holographic display showing magnified images of the shadow parasites. "The biology is unlike anything we've encountered before. They attach to the central nervous system and hijack motor control while leaving consciousness intact. The victims are aware of everything they're doing, but powerless to stop it. A horrified murmur swept through the council. "That's monstrous," whispered Counselor Maya Patel. Walker nodded grimly. "Which is why we need to act. Not just to defend ourselves, but to free those enslaved by the shadows." Admiral Grant leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain?" Walker moved to the central display and activated it. A tactical map of nearby space appeared, showing the advancing Void Fleet and the sealed borders of the stellar collective empires. Dr. Reed's compound works on individual shadows, but we need to deploy it on a massive scale. We've developed a plan called Operation Lighthouse. The display shifted to show a massive Void command vessel. According to Nix, the shadows maintain a hierarchical control network. This command ship contains what they call the primary nexus, essentially the central hub that coordinates all shadow activity in this sector of space. If we can deploy the compound there, it would disrupt shadow control throughout the fleet. Counselor Peterson scoffed. "And how exactly do you propose to get aboard their command ship?" asked nicely. Dr. Reed stepped forward. "We've been working with Nix to modify the compound into an aerosol form that can be delivered via a specialized missile. Once aboard, it would spread through their air circulation systems. It would free thousands of my people at once," Nix added quietly. "And others like them." The council chambers erupted in overlapping conversations. Walker waited patiently until Admiral Grant called for order. "This is a military operation with significant risk," the Admiral said. "Even if we approve this plan, the Defiant alone wouldn't stand a chance against their command vessel." Walker nodded. "We'll need a small fleet, 5 or 6 of our fastest ships equipped with the compound missiles. The Defiant would lead the mission." "And what about the Stellar Collective?" Counselor Patil asked. "Have they responded to our communications about the shadows?" Walker's expression hardened. "They've acknowledged receipt of our messages, but refused to open their borders or offer assistance. However, one of their scientists, a Dr. Voss from the Blue Star Republic, secretly transmitted some historical data. Apparently, the shadows have appeared before, thousands of years ago. The collective barely survived then, which is why they developed their barrier technology." "So they knew," Admiral Grant said, her voice flat. "They knew what these things were and didn't warn us." "They were afraid," Nix said softly. "Fear makes even wise beings act foolishly." The chamber fell silent again as the council members processed this revelation. Finally, Council President Robert Okafor stood. "Captain Walker, would you and your guests please wait outside while the council deliberates?" 30 anxious minutes later, Walker, Reed, and Nix were called back into the chamber. President Okafor's face was solemn. "The council has voted to approve Operation Lighthouse. Admiral Grant will oversee the preparation of a small fleet to accompany the Defiant. We're allocating all necessary resources to mass-produce Dr. Reed's compound." Walker felt a surge of pride in his species. Despite everything, humans were choosing not to hide, but to fight, not just for themselves, but for others. "Thank you, Mr. President," Walker said. "Don't thank me yet, Captain," Okafor replied grimly. "There's one more thing. Before we commit to this mission, we need to attempt one more diplomatic outreach to the Stellar Collective. Perhaps with Nix's testimony, they might reconsider." Walker nodded, though he had little hope the ancient empires would change their minds. "We'll depart immediately." 3 days later, the Defiant orbited the massive energy barrier surrounding the Highland Dominion, the oldest of the Stellar Collective empires. Walker stood on the bridge, watching as their transmission request was finally acknowledged. The view screen activated to show a tall, thin alien with pale green skin and elongated features. He wore ornate robes that marked him as a High Minister. "I am Minister Loth of the Highland Dominion," the alien said coldly. "We have been clear that our borders are closed. Your persistence is unwelcome." Walker stepped forward. "Minister, I'm Captain James Walker of Earth Alliance. We've discovered critical information about the void that changes everything. They're not invaders but victims. We are aware of the nature of the shadow parasites, Captain, Loth interrupted, causing gasps on the Defiance Bridge. This information is not new to us. Walker struggled to contain his anger. Then you know we can help them. We've developed a compound that can free them from shadow control. We developed similar methods during the last incursion, Loth said dismissively. They proved too costly to implement on the necessary scale. Nix moved into view of the transmission. I am living proof that it can work, Minister. I am Lumina, freed from shadow control by human science. Minister Loth's expression showed the first crack in his cold demeanor, surprise, followed quickly by something like shame. The Dominion extends sympathies for your suffering, he said formally, but our decision stands. Our barriers will remain sealed until the threat has passed. And if it doesn't pass, Walker demanded, what if the shadows consume every species outside your barriers? What then? Loth was silent for a moment. The survival of some is preferable to the extinction of all. This was the wisdom that preserved us before. Then at least help us, Dr. Reed pleaded. Share your knowledge about the shadows. To everyone's surprise, Loth hesitated, then nodded slightly. I will transmit certain historical records and scientific data, not because we approve of your reckless plan, but because your species has shown unexpected qualities. After the transmission ended and the promised data began flowing to their computers, Walker turned to his crew. They won't fight with us, he said, but at least we have more information now. Dr. Reed, work with the science team to incorporate anything useful into our plans. As the Defiant turned away from the Highland barrier, Walker gazed out at the stars. The stellar collective had chosen safety behind their walls. Humanity had chosen a more difficult path, to stand and fight not just for themselves, but for every enslaved being in the Void Fleet. Tomorrow, Operation Lighthouse would begin. Whatever happened, Walker knew humanity had made the right choice. Some things were worth fighting for, even when the odds seemed impossible. And sometimes, being human meant being the only ones willing to try. All ships report in. Captain Walker stood at the center of the Defiance Bridge, his voice steady despite the tension that gripped him. On the main view screen, a massive Void command vessel drifted against the backdrop of stars. It was enormous, at least 20 times the size of the Defiant, its black surface rippling like oil on water. Valiant standing by, came the first response. Thunder standing by. Horizon's Hope standing by. Guardian standing by. One by one, the 5 ships of the human fleet confirmed their readiness. They were the fastest and most maneuverable vessels Earth could provide, now loaded with specially modified missiles containing Dr. Reed's shadow-suppressing compound. Walker nodded to his communications officer. Put me through to all ships. When the channel opened, he spoke clearly and firmly. This is Captain Walker. In a few minutes, we'll begin Operation Lighthouse. Our mission is clear. Breach the Void command vessel and deploy the compound to its primary nexus. If we succeed, we'll free thousands of enslaved beings from shadow control. He paused, looking around at his crew, humans who had volunteered for what might well be a suicide mission. The stellar collective has hidden behind their walls. They've chosen safety over justice. We've chosen differently. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every being trapped under shadow control. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Beside Walker stood Commander Ross, Dr. Reed, and Nix. The Lumina had insisted on joining the mission, his knowledge of Void ship layouts proving invaluable during planning. Operation Lighthouse begins now, Walker ordered. All ships, execute Maneuver Alpha. The small human fleet accelerated toward the command vessel, splitting into 3 groups. The Defiant and Horizon's Hope took the direct approach, while the other ships moved to flank positions. Void ships responding, Davis reported from Tactical. Outer defenses activating. Dozens of smaller Void crafts emerged from the command vessel, moving to intercept the human ships. The space between them lit up with energy weapons fire, shields holding at 80%. Davis called out as the Defiant shook from a direct hit. Walker nodded. Stay on course. All ships prepare to deploy countermeasures. The human vessels released clouds of specialized particles that scattered void targeting systems. The Valiant and Thunder began their attack runs on the command vessel's outer defensive systems, drawing attention away from the Defiant. We're approaching deployment range, Ross reported. Walker turned to Dr. Reed. Doctor, is the compound ready? She nodded, her face tense but determined. Yes, Captain. The data from the Highland Dominion helped us improve the formula. It should work faster and spread more efficiently through their ventilation systems. They've noticed us, Davis warned. Multiple weapons locking on. Walker made a quick decision. Evasive pattern Delta. Prepare main missiles. The Defiant rolled and twisted through space, dodging the worst of the void weapons fire. But they couldn't avoid everything. The ship rocked violently as a powerful blast struck their port side. Shields at 50%, Davis shouted. Hull breach on deck 5. Emergency containment active. The view screen showed the Thunder taking heavy fire as it finished its attack run. Thunder to Defiant came the strained voice of its captain. We've damaged their outer defenses, but we're losing shields fast. Acknowledged, Thunder. Fall back to position Bravo. Valiant, provide cover. Walker watched as the damaged ship retreated, the Valiant moving to protect it. That left the Defiant, Horizon's Hope, and Guardian to continue the primary mission. Sir, we've got an opening. Ross pointed to a section of the command vessel where the rippling black surface had stilled. Their defenses are weakened there. Target that section. Fire main missiles. The Defiant launched 2 large missiles toward the command vessel. The void ships tried to intercept them, but covering fire from the Guardian kept them at bay. The missiles struck their target, exploding in clouds of glittering particles. Direct hit, Davis confirmed. They watched as the compound began to eat through the living hull of the command vessel, creating an opening. Nick stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The breach leads to a secondary hangar. From there, we can reach maintenance tunnels that connect to the central systems. Walker turned to Ross. Commander, prepare the ground team. Sir, with respect, I should lead. No, Walker interrupted. I'm leading this mission myself. Ross looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded instead. Then I'll maintain command of the Defiant. 20 minutes later, Walker stood in the Defiant's shuttle bay with a team of 12. All wore specialized environmental suits designed to protect against shadow infection. Dr. Reed checked each suit personally, her movements quick and precise. Remember, she told them, the compound will provide some protection, but direct contact with a shadow parasite is still dangerous. The primary nexus will be heavily guarded. Nix, also suited up, stepped forward. I will guide you through the tunnels. The enslaved may try to stop us, but remember, they are victims, not enemies. Walker addressed his team one final time. Our mission is to deploy the compound at the primary nexus. If we succeed, we free not just the beings on this ship, but potentially all shadow-controlled victims in this sector. The compound needs 10 minutes to fully disperse. We need to hold position and protect it during that time. He looked at each of their faces. This is what humans do. We stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. The shuttle launched from the Defiant, speeding toward the breach in the command vessel's hull. Void ships tried to intercept them, but the Guardian and Horizon's Hope provided covering fire, taking heavy damage in the process. Approaching the breach, the shuttle pilot announced, "Brace for rough entry." The shuttle slipped through the opening and into the cavernous hangar beyond. Inside, they saw dozens of smaller void craft and hundreds of different alien species moving with the jerky, unnatural motions of puppet masters pulling strings. Landing zone clear, the pilot said, touching down on the deck. Go. Walker led his team from the shuttle, weapons ready. As they moved, they sprayed the compound into the air, watching as the black veins on nearby enslaved aliens began to fade. "This way," Nix directed, leading them toward a maintenance tunnel. They moved quickly through the living ship, encountering enslaved beings who either collapsed as the compound took effect or fought with decreasing coordination as their shadow parasites lost control. After 15 tense minutes of navigating twisting biomechanical corridors, they reached a massive chamber. In its center pulsed a towering black structure, the primary nexus. It writhed with shadow activity, countless parasites flowing across its surface. "There," Nix pointed, "the atmospheric processing node. If we deploy the compound there, it will spread throughout the entire command vessel." Walker nodded to his explosive expert. "Set the canisters." As the team moved forward, a harsh screeching filled the chamber. Dozens of fully infected hosts poured in from side passages, moving to protect the nexus. "Defensive positions," Walker ordered. Non-lethal tactics were possible. The team formed a protective circle around the engineers working to set up the compound dispersal system. They used specialized stun weapons, dropping the enslaved hosts without killing them. "Captain," Dr. Reed called out, "look at the nexus." The black structure was changing, forming what looked like a face, a grotesque, shifting visage composed of thousands of shadow parasites. "We see you," it said, the voice a horrible chorus of countless stolen voices speaking in unison. "You cannot stop us. We are eternal. We are hunger." "Your parasites," Walker replied, continuing to fire his stun weapon at approaching hosts. "And we're the cure." The face twisted in rage. The assault intensified as more enslaved beings attacked from all sides. "Dispersal system ready," called the explosives expert. 10-minute countdown initiated. "Fall back to defensive position beta," Walker ordered. The team retreated to a more defensible position, forming a tight circle. For 10 grueling minutes, they held off wave after wave of attackers. Walker took a hit to his shoulder, the pain sharp but bearable. Others weren't so lucky. 3 of his team went down, dragged to safety by their comrades. As the countdown reached its final seconds, the shadow face on the nexus began to dissolve, its unified voice breaking into discordant screams. "What happens if this works?" Walker asked Nix during a brief lull in the fighting. The luminous eyes were bright with hope through his faceplate. "Freedom, confusion, then understanding." The compound dispersal system reached 0 and released its full payload into the chamber. A glittering cloud spread outward, drawn into the ship's ventilation systems. The effect was almost immediate. Throughout the chamber, enslaved beings stopped fighting, the black veins beneath their skin fading away. The primary nexus itself began to collapse, the shadow parasites falling from its surface like black rain. Walker watched in awe as thousands of beings from dozens of species regained control of their bodies. Some collapsed weeping. Others stood shocked and silent, looking at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. "We did it," Dr. Reed whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "It worked." Walker activated his comm system. Walker to Defiant. "Primary nexus neutralized. Compound dispersed. Request immediate evacuation for our team, and as many freed beings as we can transport." As they waited for extraction, a tall, elegant alien with silver skin approached Walker. The last of the black veins were fading from its neck. "You freed us," it said in a melodious voice. "When all others hid behind their walls, you chose to fight for us. Why?" Walker looked around at the chamber filled with newly liberated beings, then back at his brave team. "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. "We couldn't just save ourselves and let you suffer." The silver alien bowed deeply. "Then the galaxy has much to learn from humanity." As the extraction shuttles began to arrive, Walker knew this was just the beginning. The shadows would regroup, but they had struck a powerful blow today. And more importantly, they had shown the galaxy another way forward, not hiding behind walls, but standing together against the darkness. Humanity had chosen to fight, not just for themselves, but for everyone. And today, that choice had made all the difference. The Grand Council chamber of the Stellar Collective had not been used in over a century. Dust covered the massive round table at its center. Ancient banners hung from the walls, representing species and empires that had once gathered here to govern the galaxy together. Today, those banners stirred in the air as the chamber's doors opened for the first time in generations. Captain James Walker stood tall as he led the Earth delegation into the chamber. Behind him came Admiral Grant, Dr. Reed, and representatives from the newly formed Coalition of Liberated Species. Nix walked proudly among them, alongside the silver-skinned alien who had introduced himself as Taro, a former fleet commander of the Void ships. On the other side of the chamber, the leaders of the Stellar Collective Empires filed in. Minister Loth of the Highland Dominion led the procession, followed by representatives from the Blue Star Republic, the Arcturus Empire, and a dozen other ancient powers. Their faces showed a mixture of reluctance, shame, and curiosity. The two groups faced each other across the round table. No one spoke for several long moments. Finally, Minister Loth broke the silence. The Stellar Collective acknowledges the presence of the Earth Alliance and the Coalition of Liberated Species. He spoke the last words with some difficulty, as if they were strange on his tongue. Admiral Grant stepped forward. "We come seeking neither praise nor apology. We come to discuss the future. The shadow threat is weakened, but not eliminated. We must work together to end it permanently." Minister Loth's elongated features tightened. "The collective has survived for 10,000 years by protecting our borders and not interfering in external conflicts. This strategy has served us well." Walker could remain silent no longer. "Has it? You've survived, yes, but at what cost? How many civilizations have fallen while you watched from behind your walls? How many species have been enslaved or exterminated?" A murmur ran through the collective representatives. The blue-skinned alien from the Arcturus Empire rose. "You speak boldly for a species barely 2 centuries into space travel," she said coldly. "What do humans know of the sacrifices we have made, the horrors we have witnessed?" Taro, the silver-skinned former fleet commander, stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried throughout the chamber. "I was enslaved for 32 of your years," he said. "My species, the Yilani, were the first to fall in this cycle. We reached out to the collective for help. Your empires shut your borders and left us to our fate." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I watched through my own eyes as my body was forced to destroy worlds, to capture and infect other species. I heard the screams of billions through ears I could not cover with hands I could not control." The chamber fell completely silent. And then, Taro continued, "When all hope was lost, when even my memory of freedom began to fade, humans came, not to destroy us, but to free us." Nix moved to stand beside him. "We owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid." They risked everything for those they had never met. They fought not for conquest or survival, but for justice. Walker watched the faces of the collective leaders. Some looked away in shame. Others seemed thoughtful. A few remained defiant. Minister Loth spoke again, his voice less certain than before. "What exactly do you propose?" Admiral Grant activated a holographic display above the round table. It showed the status of shadow infections throughout known space. "Operation Lighthouse was just the beginning," she explained. "The compound created by Dr. Reed has freed thousands, but millions remain under shadow control. We need to mass-produce the compound, develop delivery systems for different environments, and create a coordinated strategy to target the remaining shadow nexus points." Dr. Reed stepped forward. "We've brought our research and methods. With the collective's resources and ancient knowledge, we could improve the compound further." Walker watched as the collective representatives studied the data. They conferred with each other in hushed tones. Minutes passed. Finally, Minister Loth straightened. "The Highland Dominion will contribute our biomedical facilities to this effort." The representative from the Blue Star Republic nodded. Our shipyards are at your disposal. One by one, the empires pledged their support. Some offered resources, others knowledge, still others defensive technologies. The momentum built until even the most reluctant had made some commitment. Walker could scarcely believe what he was witnessing. Empires that had hidden for centuries were now stepping forward. "There is one more matter," Admiral Grant said when all had spoken. The stellar collective structure served its purpose for many ages, but it failed when faced with the shadow threat. We propose a new alliance, one that includes Earth, the coalition of liberated species, and any collective members who wish to join. Minister Loth's eyes narrowed. And what would this new alliance be called? Walker spoke up. The United Sentinel Pact. Not walls to hide behind, but watchers who stand ready to help those in need. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some collective members seemed offended, others intrigued. The debate continued for hours, sometimes heated, sometimes thoughtful. As the day waned, a consensus emerged. Most, though not all, of the stellar collective would join this new alliance. Old barriers would be replaced with new responsibilities. Ancient knowledge would be shared in exchange for human innovation and courage. When the formal agreement was signed, Walker stood at a viewport overlooking the massive station that housed the council chamber. Stars stretched out before him, some harboring worlds still suffering under shadow control, others now free and rebuilding. Admiral Grant joined him. "You look troubled, Captain. This is a victory." Walker nodded. "It is. But I keep thinking about what made the difference, not our technology or our weapons." "What then?" "Our humanity," Walker said quietly. "When faced with a threat, the collective chose isolation. We chose connection. They built walls. We built bridges." Admiral Grant smiled slightly. "Perhaps that's why we were needed. Every species brings something to the galaxy. It seems humanity's gift is remembering that we're stronger together than apart." The door behind them opened, and Nix entered with Taro and several other coalition representatives. "The final drafts are complete," Nix announced. "The United Sentinel Pact is officially formed." Taro approached Walker. "There is something we wish to show you, Captain." He led Walker and Grant to a large chamber where representatives from dozens of species, both former collective members and liberated void victims, had gathered. As Walker entered, they all turned to face him. As one, they placed their right hands over their hearts, a human gesture they had learned. "We have a saying now," Taro explained. "When one faces darkness alone, be human." His silver features formed what Walker recognized as a smile. "It means to be brave, to help others even at great cost to yourself, to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Walker felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Nix told him. "Your actions have spoken clearly. The galaxy watched as every empire closed their doors, but humans chose to fight for us." He gestured to the gathered representatives. "And now we choose to stand with you." Outside the viewport, ships from Earth, the Coalition, and the former collective were gathering. The first fleet of the United Sentinel Pact. They would not hide behind walls. They would go forth together to free those still enslaved and build a galaxy where no species would ever be abandoned again. Walker looked at the diverse assembly of beings. Some had tentacles, others wings. Some breathed different atmospheres, others perceived different spectrums of light. But all had chosen to come together today. Humanity had shown them another way, not hiding from the darkness, but facing it together. And that, Walker realized, was perhaps the greatest victory of all.